everyone? This is I always forget what episode we're on, but Andrew, 18, maybe 18. Dude, we're coming along here. We have like a serious catalog going. But yeah, episode 18 of Midcurve. Today we have with us Evan, one of the brainiacs of Jito Labs, and the architect of Stakenet. Evan, welcome to the show, my man.
Thank you. Pumped to be here and tell you guys all about Stakenet.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is supposed to be the show is Midcurve. I think you're dragging us way further to the right than we're
Yeah.
used to, and so we'll see how it goes. But really excited to have you on, man.
Yeah, for sure. Feel free to stop me if I'm getting too far in the deep end. I've been thinking about all this stuff way too much for the last most of the last year, so you need to just go over people's heads. So.
I also forgot to mention that you're kind of like a Twitter legend. I mean, to me anyway. I think you put out some of the funniest tweets. You don't tweet that much, and I know you just took a hiatus from Twitter just to like cleanse the timeline a bit. But you have some of the funniest tweets I've ever read. Like literally, you and maybe Gwart are the only people who have made me laugh out loud on the
Wow, that's
timeline.
really high praise, actually. Yeah, I do see your likes in there, and I'm like, oh man, I got Justin.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's talk about. One more thing before we start. He is dragging us to the right curve, but we also did just launch a show called Right Curve.
That's
So
right. So this is on brand. Yeah.
this is on brand. We will have a show called Right Curve. We'll have the main shows called Mid Curve, and potentially, I just talked to someone today. We'll have a Left Curve show where we can talk about meme coins and NFTs and that type of thing.
That's right. In addition to
So
being on the spectrum, we covered the full IQ spectrum.
precisely. Yes,
Yeah.
that's the goal. But let's get into the serious stuff. So everyone knows we're launching something called Stakenet. But Evan, maybe you could give us like an overview of what Stakenet actually is.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess just to clear things up right out of the gate, StakeNet is not restaking. I think that gets a lot of people confused. StakeNet in particular is this protocol that in just a few days is going to be managing JitoSol. It's an entirely on-chain protocol. Basically takes the management of JitoSol to be this entirely like decentralized, unstoppable sort of force where all of the management of the stake pool happens on chain. And there's a number of different components to that. I'm sure we'll get into the specifics there, but yeah, basically StakeNet taking over JitoSol, but there's a couple of different components there that we can break down.
Yeah, I know. Lucas and Zano went on stage, I think, last Breakpoint, and sort of gave this idea: StakeNet will make this a truly decentralized protocol. What does that mean exactly? Like, without naming names, what's going to be the difference between JitoSol and other LSTs, perhaps on other networks, once StakeNet's live?
Yeah. So stepping back a little bit for just how stake pools work. So stake pools have a couple of different like key things that they have to do. First, they have to select a set of validators that they're going to delegate their stake to. Maybe those validators are of a certain have certain properties that the stake pool wants to incentivize on the network, or certain qualities about their performance that maybe it's like you want to optimize for a higher yield or something. One's like job for stake pools is to select your validator set. The other job is to delegate the stake that you get from your stakers to those validators. And on Solana, you get a chance to do that pretty much every 2 days. You get a chance to, activate stake, deactivate stake. That's the epoch time on Solana. It's the time that you have to. You're basically your like bonding time, your lockup time for stake accounts. So what that means on a practical level is that stake pools need to be running some set of instructions to make sure the stake is like on that validator set every 2 days. And we have this authority in the canonical stake pool program, the SPL stake pool program, called the staker authority. And because that's the authority that's moving around stake, you basically need something that's triggering instructions every 2 days. It gets really impractical to turn that into a like thing that's owned by a DAO or even a multi-sig. So what it ends up being in most cases is just this centralized like hot wallet on some server that is just running some private code base and delegating stake. So it's very hard to like get full transparency into how that works. If the team that's even running that server decides, oh, we want to stop supporting that stake pool, they can, and there's not much else you can do about that. Um, so that's the initial idea of why Stakenet, like something like Stakenet, is even important, and that's the sort of the innovation that Stakenet brings that makes LSTs really like actually decentralized.
So you're throwing around words like canonical. We immediately jumped into the right curve.
Right. You might not be too aware of our
I was
listener
gonna say
base here.
enshrined, but
Yeah.
Or us.
I haven't heard that word since college. Yes, let's jump into like core technologies and the architecture. I think you have some slides to share with us. So like maybe like it would be easier if we could like visualize this stuff a little bit.
yeah. Let me pull that up. Also figure out how to actually show on the
Can you
software.
present, by
Yeah,
the
I think
way?
so.
Okay.
See all my random sketches on the side there, but yeah. So breaking down the like initial, like this is the status quo for stake pools today. You have this core stake pool like smart contract. This is developed by the Solana Foundation. This is what I was saying is like the canonical one. It's one that a number of the biggest pools on Solana use, like Blaze Sol, Jito Sol, like MarginFi's LST, a few others. So what this does is it will create these stake accounts. Reminder that Solana is a delegated proof of stake. So any like individual user can create a stake account that is delegated to a validator, but that also means like a program itself can be controlling these stake accounts that then get assigned to validators. In the Jito Sol case, we have stake accounts that are only going to Jito Solana validators because that's a property that Jito Sol wants to incentivize for the network is running the Jito Solana client. So this is what Jito Sol looks like today. Zooming out, we get into this new architecture. So breaking down those two steps that every stake pool needs to do, you have to select your validators and you need to delegate your stake. So when you're selecting validators, what are you actually doing? Basically, you're looking at all of these different properties of every single validator on the network, deciding, does this have the properties that I care about as a stake pool? And then either choosing like yes or no, I want to add it to the stake pool. So what do you need to do that? Well, you need high quality data about the validators, ideally looking back at some like number of months or even years of like history of how that validator has been performing and what it's been doing. And to do that in a decentralized manner, we need to put that information on chain. So that's what the validator history program does. It takes a number of different sources of where validator data exists. For example, there's the vote program, which is basically like the where consensus happens on chain. You can look at all of these properties of validators like within the Solana runtime itself. So we look at that as one of the places that validator data is pulled from. There's some things off chain. There's something called the Solana gossip protocol, which is basically how validators tell each other like what they are, like what their IP is, what client and version they're running. That's one source of data. There's just an RPC method that brings in some data. So there's all of these different sources that gets all like amalgamated into a single account per validator that supports up to 3 years of history. And that's the validator history program. So once we have all that data, now we can build some on-chain logic. This steward program is sort of this on-chain brain that then takes in the validator history program and then decides what validators do I actually want to stake to. Then, given that set, we'll delegate Sol permissionlessly. So we have those two pieces. Those stay alive and are just running because we have these permissionless keeper bots that basically can trigger all of the instructions to keep everything running. The important thing about the keeper bots is that anyone can run the software. The programs are designed such that there's no like special authorities to get the main functionality working. which is really important, and that's what makes this like actually decentralized. On the other side, to tweak how the steward program or just how the stake pool delegates everything, the JTO DAO is going to be in full control of the parameters for scoring, like which validator is selected, and then other parameters about just the general operation, like how many validators do you actually want to have in the stake pool, and how frequently are you going to be reselecting that set. So the JTO DAO has a huge role to play in how this all works and evolves in the future. That's the high level. Hopefully, didn't lose you guys there. We can dive into any piece of that.
Yeah, let's do. I'm curious. Like, I see the workflow from the perspective of like Soul comes in and where does it go to who and how, right? I think it might be useful to break down from like a user standpoint, right? If I convert my Soul into Jito Soul using the front end on Jito.network today, um, I think not a lot of people sort of understand what's happening on the back end. Like it's a box that you put in Soul and Jito Soul comes out, and it's great, and you're earning rewards. Um, and that used to be a pain point, right? Like maybe for other systems, who that Soul actually gets staked with, and who your validator is. It's like whose friend was with the founder of the project, right? That it's sometimes based on systems of trust and business development relationships, but now this is something totally different in that it's based on math and validator performance.
Yeah, exactly. The idea is that it's creating this set of rules that are just purely based on statistics that exist on the on chain, and it's a just really unbiased way to select validators, and then every single action of moving stake is transparent and predictable.
Love that. Talk to me about like some of the more interesting possible data sources, right? One thing I know some people are excited about is some of that information in the gossip protocol, specifically like where nodes are operated. And so if when we say that this thing is decentralized, like we can move stake around to focus on different geographical regions, perhaps depending on, somebody cracking down on crypto or something. Like, why? What's most interesting to you in the data, and what sort of excites you about what we can weight performance towards?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, what I do like is that there all of these different sources that we take from in order to get like the full set of validator history data, which you can see in this chart here or on this site. Um, I think most things are pretty standard. It's like we're looking for a number of different properties, like are you outside of the validator super minority, like the halt line that is the top third of stake. Um, we are looking just making sure that you have good performance. You also just need to be having good uptime and make like not going offline for extended periods of time. But some interesting extensions that are, I think, pretty novel, just Web3 product ideas in general would be taking this IP address, which is now on chain via this gossip system, uh, and relating that to an actual like latitude and longitude or estimated location via some sort of like decentralized ping. Like imagine you have multiple nodes around the world where you know where those nodes are. You have an IP. You just ping that IP, which is basically just sending a packet, waiting for it to come back and seeing how long it takes. If you could somehow use that information, the multiple data points you're pinging from, to like triangulate a location, I think you could get a pretty good estimation of where it is in the world, at least probably down to like the country. Which, if that is on chain, then I think you could do a lot of interesting things with making sure that stake is distributed across geographies. I think that the main thing here that uh, people who care about a decentralized network care about is just if crypto gets banned in like a country, if Stakenet could be intelligent enough to encode that into the scoring, and then just automatically move stake away from that country if all nodes shut offline. I think then you have a really like robust network in general.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I think so. Like, where can we see some information on what this is, what this looks like. I know we've got some fancy UI UX stuff that we can show off here.
Yeah. As in like the validator history stuff or the
Yeah, validator history stuff, the geographical location stuff, anything where the sort of average user can
yeah, the
track this
easiest
stuff.
way is Jito Network slash Stakenet. This so this is, I mean, using some tricks. It doesn't have the exact location pulling from on chain. There's a lot of different services out there that have these like off chain like Web 2 style databases, but this is so every single validator here, all the information is being pulled from the validator history program on chain, including the IPs. So you can go in, look at any given validator, see all of these stats going back uh, like dozens of epochs, pretty much. I think this is just when the validator went online is epoch 606 a few months ago. Since then, all of this information is being tracked on chain. Um, and then you can just check out what's happening with these validators, and then if you're interested in building a protocol that builds on top of this data, you can just pull in the account from on chain, parse that data, and then write some program that reacts to changes in a validator's like metadata.
Are there any other ways that contributors can get involved?
Yeah, for sure. So this is just the validator history piece. I know there's some other sites out there. I think Edgevana has a validator data site that pulls a lot of data from the validator history program as well, which is cool to see that it's becoming this sort of like public good, like public utility that people are relying on. Um, but yeah, I know there are some other stake pools that are interested in using the decentralized model that Stakenet is bringing about. And what I would recommend is just diving into the Stakenet GitHub repo, looking at how the steward program is selecting its validator set and delegating stake, and thinking about how it would apply to like their own validator set and how they could encode their own scoring algorithms or their own delegation mechanisms. And yeah, I mean, feel free to reach out to me for help or advice on any of that. The other thing for just general Jito network community members is this is now a huge leap in the ability for like DAO participants to control the delegation and the just like how Jito Soul works. Um, so at the very least, would recommend looking into a bit about how these validators are scored and the different properties that are considered, and just understanding how like what are these different levers that we can pull to incentivize different properties in the validator set. And then if you're really ambitious, yeah, diving into the code, putting in PRs, playing around with the data yourself, all great things.
That's awesome. Yeah, definitely get out and vote. Stake some JTO. I don't know if I can say that, but stake some JTO, vote, participate in governance. That's what it's for. And yeah, would love to see people like one, making your voice heard, and two, just participating. I think that's huge for our community, right? I have one more question about this though. Like, what's the long term goal for StakeNet, and how do you see this thing like impacting blockchains?
Yeah. At least on the Jito Soul front, I envision it being like this could be the thing that just runs forever, and slowly, maybe some different fields are added, like the geographic thing. Um, but yeah, hopefully it's just something that runs, doesn't require a ton of maintenance or ongoing development, and just, you know, 20 years from now, we're all still on Solana. It's still running and working perfectly. I think it's actually a rare thing that like crypto companies last even that long, and for something as foundational to DeFi as LSTs are, like people should be demanding more out of the longevity of the assets that they're working with. Um, so that's one thing. I think on a broader sense, I think StakeNet's a really good example of how if you can bring new types of data about these economic entities on chain in a verified way with this really like bulletproof supply chain of data where every step of the way everything's verified, then you can do really novel, interesting things. Like the general formula is you get this like off-chain data or outside of the outside of the blockchain data about some real world economic thing. You put it on chain in some verified way, and then you create this on-chain brain that can then compute on that data, do some logic, and then do what blockchains are best at, which is just managing, moving around digital assets in response to that. An interesting like analogy here is like comparing Stakenet to something like Helium, where you have these off-chain entities, which are these hotspots that provide coverage. They have these proof of coverage oracles that are able to detect like, is this hotspot actually providing the coverage it's claiming to? Puts that data on chain, and then they have another smart contract which then takes all that in and then does the actual like reward paying out of the Helium tokens. So yeah, in that sense, StakeNet kind of looks like a DPIN application if you squint hard enough. But I don't want to push that narrative too far because you could also make the argument that like all L1 blockchains are kind of a DPIN thing. Um, so
No, hold on. We can brand it like that. We'll go with that. Jito is
Yeah.
now restaking DPIN. We'll throw in some AI in there. We got it all covered.
Yeah. To that end, though, I do feel kind of bad for you to the extent that you you worked for a year on this thing, and then right as it goes live, perhaps overshadowed by another major Jito announcement, right? Um, I'm curious.
well, I think that there's interesting synergies there that
Yeah, let's talk about
make
that. Where
each one will make
Yeah,
the other one
where
better.
can the two work together, and are there applications for restaking in StakeNet or vice versa? How are these new products going to work together and further decentralize the stack?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, there's some obvious ways that I think, depending on the direction that the DAO wants to take StakeNet, make a lot of sense. Um, First one is just for those. There's a few of the like final fields that do have some permissioned element, but they would be, I think, trivial to implement as a decentralized like AVS. So, for example, for these random technical reasons that is kind of annoying, there's no place on chain where you can read the total stake that a validator has, which is seems like arcane and doesn't make any sense, but that's the case. So what you have to do is just call an RPC method and then upload that. So like it's something that anyone can do. Anyone has access to an RPC endpoint. That would be like the simplest AVS to make. It's like everyone can verify that everyone else said the right thing, and if you didn't, you slash them. So that's a very simple example. Another simple one is that we have the need to run these crank instructions to just keep all of the different aspects of StakeNet running. These you need over 10,000 transactions every 2 days to be run, and if that doesn't happen, then it's not ideal. So that's like there's some pretty strong guarantees that we need around that. Meaning, if you could have some again AVS that is making sure that uh, all the transactions are run, and if someone misses their expected transaction, they get slashed. I think that provides some stronger guarantees, or at least the ability to pay out people who are submitting the transactions. Um, Finally, I think that geographic like lat long thing based on IP would be a cool product that could go beyond the need that StakeNet has.
Like actually build a real
Yeah,
DPEN
yeah.
AVS? Like,
And it's
yeah,
like given any IP, turn that into a rough like location. I think that would be a sick AVS that StakeNet would have use for, but I'm sure tons of other just applications in Web3 would love to have. Um, yeah, I have no idea what that actually looks like to build, so I'm just like putting that out there. But it's a wish list thing for sure.
Cool. Andrew, do you have any other questions?
yeah. I guess my last two for you would be, what do you think's next for StakeNet? I know this thing needs to be live on mainnet for a while before, you know, we actually switch over the delegation program to it. But also, like, what's next for you? Like, you've been burning a whole lot of midnight oil on this thing. I'm curious, like, what are you going to build next once Stakenet is properly squared away and fully autonomous on chain?
I mean, first a little break I think is needed, but after that, I think just anything to support Jito Soul to grow. I mean, whether that's more tooling to to make the user experience better, tooling to help like large holders deal with their holdings. I don't even know what I don't have that problem, um, but yeah, I think stepping back and just cleaning up some of the stuff around the GeoSoul experience would be helpful. Then I think it would be fun to just jam on different AVSs if that's up and running. I think there's a lot of ways that restaking can, like I said, like expand the scope of putting new types of information on chain to work with. I do love working on smart contracts, and I think it's some of the most interesting types of problems to solve. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm all I'm focused on is just getting this out the door. So
Cool. Do you have I guess we can wrap it up here. I mean, we're actually coming up on like 30 minutes, so that kind of
Yeah,
flew
no,
by.
this is perfect. But
Yeah,
no, Evan, like, love hearing that that's the focus of our engineering team, locked in as
gotcha.
always. Really appreciate you coming through and raising the IQ points a little bit here, man.
thanks, guys. Yeah, super fun. We talk about this.
Yeah. Do you have anything you want to leave the people with, Evan? Any final thoughts, or are you good?
Uh, my advice is always just check the chain, see what's actually happening out there.
Check it.
Check the chain when StakeNet goes live, and make sure it's working.
Perfect. All right. Well, I added zero value to this podcast, but I'm glad I got to hang out with you and see you boys. It's always good to kick it and talk to you. But we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, until next time.